So it's official. We have been going for 300 days straight without seeing a pullback of 2.5% or more in the NASDAQ market. Today, we're going to jump into the charts. We're going to jump into where we're currently at from a technical standpoint, what the hype was that really drew the market higher, and are we expecting a pullback? And if so, how are we preparing? How are we sizing in? And what are we watching to capitalize on that correction move that's going to be happening inevitably? So let's go ahead and jump right on into the charts. I'm going to share my screen and we will dive right on into the technicals. So looking at the NASDAQ 100 here, we're looking at QQQ. And what we're going to be paying attention to is we're looking at the weekly chart right now. So let's go ahead and grab a drawing tool. And again, we're looking at the weekly chart. And what I want you guys to notice right off the bat, this is going to be looking back to the end of 2021, into 2022, into 2023, and 2024. And we're going to look at some of the key events that have happened from a technical standpoint that's really helping us draw the thesis and kind of the game plan that we're playing, that we're trying to play out here. So the first thing we're looking at is we're looking for overbought levels here on the weekly chart. Every time we've hit overbought levels, we saw significant selling happening. That was the first time here at the end of 2021. The second time here was in 2023, where we were overbought and we ended up seeing some selling, not as significant as 2021 was, but it nevertheless did happen. And now the third time in 2024, we are starting to see the same exact pattern playing out. Extremely, extremely overbought. And we are in this ascending channel that we've been trading in. And it's just a matter of time for us to break out of this channel and start correcting the market, right? Eventually, the AI kind of craze is going to be over and the market is going to have to return to at least the mean to correct itself before it continues higher. Is it going to continue higher? Eventually, yes, but we do need to see that correction, that leveling out that really stabilizes the market. We can't just see the market continue to push higher and higher and higher without seeing a correction. And at that 300-day mark that we're currently at, we haven't seen this happen since 1990. This is probably the third longest stretch since 1990, right? And so again, this is the big picture here on the weekly chart. That's what we're paying attention to. So how are we preparing for this and how are we going to capitalize on the move down? So if you guys have watched the previous video that I posted, I think it was about 2 weeks ago when QQQ was still at that 430 zone, which was right about here. We're at 446. At that 430 zone, we did begin to start sizing into SQQQ, which SQQQ goes up when the overall market goes down, right? So when QQQ starts dropping, we're going to be capitalizing by investing in SQQQ. When the market goes down, SQQQ goes up, right? So we've been slowly sizing in, and it's all about sizing, right? All about patience. So at this point, we already knew the market was extremely overbought. And so that's kind of why we did begin to size in. We did the same analysis that we're doing here on the weekly chart on a daily and a 4-hour. And even at those levels, at those time frames, we were still extremely overbought. So the fact that we're super overbought here on the weekly chart and we still haven't seen a pullback or a breakout down to the downside is just telling us that it's going to happen, right? And so we're waiting here for this breakout to happen, and that's when we're really going to step on the gas and add extreme size, not just small little batches that we're adding as the market is still trying to push its way up, but we obviously see that it has now exhausted itself, right? So that's essentially how we're preparing on a weekly time frame, right? We're looking at a weekly chart. Let's go ahead and clear this out and go into a little more depth in terms of what we are really looking at. So we've talked about the overbought levels that we're currently at. Now, what are the triggers that we're waiting for to see for us to really dive into this position with more size, right? Into SQQQ with more size. So the first thing we're waiting for is we're obviously already hit this overbought zone, which we just talked about. We're now waiting for this convergence to start happening on the MACD for the moving averages to begin to cross to the downside. Once we start seeing that, we're going to start seeing price action start pulling back. And the last piece of the puzzle that we really want to wait for is this exponential moving average to break below that, right? That first break we want to see out of this channel that we've been trading in. And that second break is we want to see that break below the exponential moving average. And not just on the weekly chart, but also on the daily chart and the 4-hour chart. That's going to give us more confirmation that we are starting to see that pullback. Now, let's go ahead and dive into kind of expectations and what we're expecting, right? So going off of just the last pullback that we saw, what was that pullback like and how much percent should we expect to see, right? So that last pullback that we saw, if we go from the very peak to the very bottom, was about 11%. So if we replicate that to where we're at right now, 11% would be approximately at this 400, about that 495 to 400 zone, 395 to 400 zone. That would be a pullback to where I would expect this to come down to. And as you guys can see, this was a previous zone where we did see some resistance, and that is previously where we got rejected back in 2021. So a pullback down to here to establish that support, I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. Let's go ahead and draw that out so that we can kind of have that on our radar. So a pullback to about here is where I expect to come down to. And then potentially a bounce here at the support level if we do find support, and a push back up to continue higher, right? That AI craze that we have been seeing is going to come to an end. And with how the market is set up from a technical standpoint on a weekly chart, it's inevitable for us to see that. Can the pullback be a lot bigger? Definitely. We have this support established here. So this is the first level of support that we're kind of expecting. Can it pull back all the way down to this 365, 370 zone? Definitely. But the first level we want to watch for right now is this 400 to 395 zone. This is the general area that I do anticipate that pullback to happen. That's where I'm going to be locking in profits on my SQQQ position once we see that breakout and once we step on that gas. So that's basically the breakdown of QQQ on the weekly chart. Now, I do want to jump into where we're at in terms of a daily chart and give you guys some more applicable kind of action-based approaches that we're paying attention to, right? So on a weekly chart, we do know that the market is extremely overbought, and we are just really waiting for, we are slowly sizing into SQQQ, and we're waiting for that break to happen for us to kind of get that confirmation that, hey, we are starting to see that sell off. When do we actually step on the gas with adding more size to our SQQQ position? So that's going to be when we're going to start seeing a break out of this channel that we're currently trading in. So basically, since November of last year, we've been trading in this channel, this ascending channel, all the way up until now, right? And so what we want to see is we want to see a break out of this channel to the downside. That's going to be our first level of kind of indication of, hey, we can add more size to SQQQ. The price is breaking out of the channel that it has been trading in. And as you guys can see, every time we break out of a channel that we're trading in, we go into that opposite direction. So a break down below this channel, out of this channel, would give us an indication to where we just talked about us going down to that 400 to 398 zone, 395 zone. That general area is going to be kind of our first target for SQQQ for us to lock in profits on that position, right? As soon as we break below that, as soon as we break below this exponential moving average, this blue line right here, that is giving us confirmation that that sell-off is actually happening. That is when we're going to start adding significant size to really capitalize on that. The reason we're kind of averaging up and sizing into SQQQ was because of what we talked about on that big picture, that weekly chart. We are extremely overbought, and it's not a matter of if we're going to start seeing a sell-off, it's a matter of when, right? As soon as this hype dies down from AI, we're going to start seeing that sell-off. And on top of that, it hasn't even been those magnificent 7 companies that we love to trade that has been driving the market higher. It has literally been the AI craze, right? So as soon as that wears off, and that's wearing off as we speak, right, we clearly see the price is struggling to push higher quicker, and we're starting to see it kind of leveling out. As soon as it levels out, we're going to start seeing that push down to the downside. So that is our expectation. That is how we're preparing for this sell-off to happen. And now you can do the same exact analysis on a 4-hour chart and all the way down to whatever time frame that you trade on. But I just wanted to give you guys an overall view of kind of where we're at on a weekly basis and on a daily basis, right? So watching this daily chart, every candle is a day, right? So the daily chart should be sufficient for you guys to understand that we are really at that breaking point of us breaking down out of this channel and going into that correction that is way, way, way overdue. So that's how we're preparing. We're sizing in slowly. We've been sizing in since 4:30. So as soon as we entered this general zone right here, where you guys see it in gray, this highlighted in gray area, that was where our last video was. You guys can go back in the channel and see that I did post that we are preparing to go short in the overall market. Since then, the market hasn't really gone up too much, right? Our risk to reward is already there. And so honestly, I don't anticipate the market pushing higher much longer. So I do anticipate this sell-off happening. We obviously have a stop, but at the end of the day, the market has to correct, and we're going to be ready for that. We may be a little bit early, but from 4:30, we've been sizing in. So our average is sitting around approximately 437, 440, and we're about 446 right now. So seeing that market push down is going to really, we're pretty much getting in at the top, as close to it as you can. You'll never catch the exact top. You're never going to catch the exact bottom, but the key is sizing in, right? You don't want to go extreme size, because then you're just waiting for that to pull up and then finally break out and push down to the downside. At this point, what we're waiting for is we slowly sized in, very light size, and then once we see that break, that's when we're adding that substantial size, and that's where that power move is, where we're going to capitalize the most on this entire move that we've been talking about. So this is just a quick breakdown for you guys of QQQ, where we're at with the overall market. The SPY is acting pretty much the same exact way. So whether you're trading the NASDAQ or you're trading the S&P 500, the trends are pretty much the same. The market's been trading pretty much the same for both. So this is applicable to both, I would say. So I personally trade the NASDAQ, and I trade TQs and SQs. And so that's how we've been preparing with getting into SQQQ and sizing in, and then waiting to step on the gas once we see that break happen on the daily chart. So for us, we're waiting for this break on the daily. The weekly was just kind of a general picture. The daily is where we're going to really see that push. And once we see that break, we're going to start sizing in significantly. So that's just a quick overview of the overall market, what I'm seeing, what I'm waiting for, how we believe the overall market is currently extremely overbought, and where we're anticipating to really push on the size to capitalize on the move that we're going to see that correction for. So that's the basics here on QQQ. The second thing that I want to jump into with you guys is going to be the current events that we're going to be seeing popping up. So this week, we don't really have too much going on. Monday, we didn't have much at all with economic data. Tomorrow, what we have is we have the S&P Global Service PMI being reported. Previous was 52.5. We are anticipating that being lower at 51.3. So that's going to be one to pay attention to. The ISM non-manufacturing PMI is going to be reported. ISM non-manufacturing prices for the month of February is going to be reported tomorrow. Nothing too significant, but those two are big ones to pay attention to. Then Wednesday, we have the ADP non-farm employment change for the month of February. We have Fed Chair Powell testifying on Wednesday. So that's going to be a really big one to pay attention to, because we have been kind of getting radio silence from the Fed in terms of rates as of late. So let's see kind of what he says and, how that whole thing goes. That's going to be a significant driver for the overall market. JOLTS job opening for the month of January. That's going to be an important one to pay attention to. Crude oil inventories, if you guys are trading oil, that's going to be an important one to pay attention to for you guys. Initial jobless claims on Thursday. Exports, imports are going to be important to pay attention to as well. Continuing jobless claims, and that, and then Fed Powell or Fed Chair Powell testifying again on Thursday. And then Friday, we're going to see average hourly earnings month over month for the month of February, non-farm payroll for the month of February, unemployment rate for the month of February. So that in combination with Jerome Powell testifying, that's going to make it for a pretty significant end to the week. So seeing a sell-off again is very, very likely that we're going to start seeing that break happening maybe at the end of this week. But again, it's all about sizing. We've been slowly sizing in and we've been preparing. And so that's kind of where we're going with that. In terms of earnings this week, we don't have anything too significant reporting. It's a lot of retail. We have Ross, Nordstrom, we have Victoria's Secret, UNFI, Burlington, Costco. Costco is probably one of the bigger ones, and Kroger would be the big ones to pay attention to. DocuSign would be a big one to pay attention to. Those three I would be interested in. In terms of the rest, Neo is also reporting. That would be an interesting one to pay attention to tomorrow. However, other than that, it's a busy earnings, but it really depends on what you're trading. For the overall market, these names aren't too significant to have that much of an impact. I'd be more interested in something like Apple, Amazon, the big significant seven, or magnificent seven, whatever you want to call them. So those are going to be the market movers. These are nice to know kind of where that general sector is at and how that's going to be kind of reflecting on the overall market. So those are the big ones to pay attention to. You guys can pause the video, watch, kind of go over whatever earnings that you guys are interested in. I can pull up the economic data as well. That way you guys can kind of see at least what's going to be happening at the beginning of this week. Again, Wednesday and Thursday are going to be the big days because we're going to see Fed Chair Jerome Powell testifying on Wednesday and Thursday. So those are going to be the big days to pay attention to. And I think the market's going to move most on those days. So again, Tuesday, we've got a couple things. Wednesday and Thursday are going to be the big ones. Thursday, we're going to probably just see how the market plays out post the testimony, right? Or the testifying of Jerome Powell. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to smash that like button. Let me know what you guys think the market's going to be doing at the end of or throughout this week. Let me know if this breakdown of kind of the overall market being overbought and how we're preparing to take advantage of that correction and basically play the short of the market, if that makes sense to you guys. If you guys do have questions, drop them in the comments. Again, we are anticipating the overall market is going to pull back. QQQ is going to pull back. SPY is going to pull back. And jumping into SQQQ is personally how we're getting ready to take advantage of that pullback. And again, if you guys paid attention, you guys know that we are waiting for that break out of this channel, break below the exponential moving average, and that convergence to start happening on the weekly and the daily charts to give us confirmation to step on the gas with size and capitalize on that move. Again, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys do have any questions, drop them in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on next week's video.